Hello there. Welcome to the Code Name Sister podcast. I'm your host, Nandi. Today, we're going to talk about those people who like to play with other people's feelings, okay? First of all, let me put it out there. I ain't got nobody playing with my feelings, but I have been there before. I know what it's like to have your feelings played with. It's not a good look on either side. But hey, that don't stop people from doing it. You get people who will start off communicating with you a whole lot, then all of a sudden they just like drop off the face of the earth. And the one thing that I've learned from that in particular is that you don't put no more energy into communicating with a person than they put into you. Somebody who is always texting and never picks up the phone to call you, that person might have a communication problem. Now, they could be shy and all that stuff, but eventually you got to come off of that goddamn phone. You're going to have to stop sending text messages, pick up the phone and say what the hell it is you need to say, or be that show up in person. I'm the type of person, you can send me a text message and you might not ever hear from me. And again, it's not because I don't want to respond to you, just that texting is not one of my favorite things. I've got things to do with my time, and I can't be preoccupying all my time with responding to somebody in a text message. And anytime it starts going back and forth, it's a lot easier to just pick up the phone. Now, I know that we living in this so-called microwave society right now, which to me has led a lot of people to think that they're communicating well, to think that that their type of communication is healthy. But I'm just gonna put this out here, and y'all can disagree or whatever you want to do, but a lot of us have become more antisocial because of the technology that is available to us. A lot of us also have problems with healthy communication because of the availability of technology. And we see this even more so with our younger people who were born into this technology. And I can even kind of overlook to a certain degree, I'm a little bit flexible. I'm more flexible with younger people who live by their text messaging versus pick up the phone, because like I said, a lot of them were born into it. But people like my age and period, if you're in your 40s, 50s and above, it is no way in hell that you should be thinking that you and I are seeing each other and most of our communication is through text messaging. Like, what the fuck is going on? Pick up your phone and call. Matter of fact, I don't even have to tell you to pick up the phone, because if you texting me, you already got your phone in your hand. And like I said, the phone has different sides to it. One side is that it makes phone calls. That's what it's really for. It is a phone before it is anything else. So you're supposed to be able to make phone calls. And if you can't make a phone call, then, I'm not fixing it. If I call you for something and you don't call me back, I actually am more likely to not respond to you again because you ain't serious. So if I text you, if I do happen to text you, and it's usually because someone has texted me. If someone texts me and I text them back and they don't respond to that text, guess what? I ain't fixing to text you back no more. So that means the next time you text me, I'm not responding. So you better pick up the phone and call me at that point if it's really that important. And like I said, I remember I've had people over time, who told me stuff like, you don't get in touch with nobody no more. You don't never call. You don't never text. If it's that important for you to talk to me, why aren't you calling and texting? Now, it's a totally different thing if you're telling me I always call for you, I always send a text to you, and you don't respond. That's different. Even though it could be just because you're not somebody I want to talk to. That's probably what it is. If a person, after all your texting and calling, if a person does not call you back, if you never get that call back, y'all not going together like that. Okay? Just plain and simple. That person don't even owe you an explanation for it. Like I tell people, even when you tell somebody no is an explanation. It says everything that needs to be said when you say no. Okay? So if somebody is not calling you back, or they're not responding to your text, especially those that they initiated, if they're not responding, then, hey, just let that shit ride. And by ride, I mean, don't make any more attempts to communicate with those types of people, because those people are telling you that you are not a priority. And I don't know if you want to live your life just not being a priority. I mean, if that's the way you doing things and, you feel like that's working for you, then, go for it. But I want to know that if that person expects me to see them as a priority, that they also see me as a priority. So that means that we gonna both be, giving, not always one person giving and the other one is just taking. So yeah, go ahead on and do that. Send me a text message and then don't respond when I respond back to you. You ain't getting no more text messages. Or don't return my phone call. I ain't calling you no more. I mean, shit. Now, if you're a company and I got some money riding on it or whatever, I'm more likely to call that company more than one time than I am somebody who's supposed to personally know me, who doesn't have enough regard to return my phone call. And if all our communication is always text messaging, that shit gonna run out too. Facebook Messenger, all that shit. Anything where I gotta be typing stuff that I could just be saying and having it said and done with in a limited amount of time, ain't gonna happen. You should be sending, it'll be one of those where you realize 6 months later or a year later, oh, she don't call or text me no more. Because usually that's about how long it takes somebody when they're not interested in you anyway. Well, and not so much not interested in you, but not interested in who you are as a person. Because there are people who have interest in you, but it's not for healthy things. It's not for things that gonna benefit you. You know what I mean? So you could be somebody, they initiated some conversation with you because they were looking for somebody to have sex with. You weren't moving fast enough. Somebody else connected with them and they started moving fast enough. So they don't have time to return your calls right now because they got somebody to have sex with. So now once they stop having sex with that person, then they might come back around, and that's when they more likely to tell you some shit about, oh, you don't call a nigga no more, because that's the kind of stuff they say. I'm not just saying, nigga just to be saying nigga. I'm saying it because that's how some of them actually think when they that's some of the things that they say when they call you. Oh, so you don't talk, you don't call a nigga no more, you don't text a nigga. Okay. First of all, I usually don't call niggas. So you're right about that. I normally don't text niggas. So you're right about that. But what is going on here is you are trying to take the burden and responsibility off yourself, that accountability thing. You trying to project your lack of accountability onto me. You trying to make that my story. Like, I'm the bad person. Like, I was the one who didn't have the follow through, when really it was on you, because you out there doing whatever you want to do. So my thing is always, whatever you've been doing in this time that it took you to finally decide that you wanted to reach out to me again, keep doing that shit. I'm not going to stop you. I really don't care what it is you're doing. As long as I don't find out you like hurting little children or whatever, and I might give somebody your address at that point and tell them where they can find your ass. But other than that, I really, shit, just keep on. You ain't got a front for me. When you call me, you don't even have to say that. You could just say, I hadn't talked to you in a little while. I was just checking up on you, see what you were up to. I'm not having sex with nobody else right now, so I was figuring maybe I might be able to fit you in, if you willing. Something like that. At least you're being honest. But when you come off with somebody like, you don't call a nigga no more, you don't text a nigga no more. No, nigga, I don't. Since that's what you are, you self-identified as a nigga. So, hey, I'm just calling you what you identify as. So yeah, a lot of, I see this with a lot of our young women. Matter of fact, I usually, y'all may not know this about me, but Quora is one of my little best kept secrets. So a lot of times people put things on Quora, they ask questions, and I know some of the questions are manufactured because Quora pays you if a lot of people respond to the questions that you pose. So some people come on there and they just posing questions that they just pulled out their ass. They probably not even experiencing it. They just made it up. And that's all good. But because some questions catch my attention and I'm like, you know what? I got an answer for this. Because what I realize is, even though it might be a question that this person is not actually encountering, there's sometimes other people who are. So I'll go on there and I'll answer some questions. And one question I always see popping up is about communication. It's like first this guy was talking to me all the time. We were talking all the time, always having conversations, or he was always texting me, and now he doesn't return any of my calls, any of my texts. What do you think might be going on? Well, what's going on is ain't nothing going on with you and him. Okay, that's just like the one that anytime they want something from you, they contact you. If they don't want nothing from you, then they don't contact you. But anytime you have been having, and that's probably was one of those with that whole love bombing stage, and you actually were saved and you don't even realize it, that you got a pass, because had you got involved with a person like that, that relationship was probably going to be tumultuous and traumatic for you. So that person actually did you a service, not a disservice, but a service, because they did their little love bombing and then they just left you alone. Because a lot of times they'll do their love bombing and then they pull you in and they traumatize the hell out of you. And we see this with some of those diagnosed as like narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths. Things like that. We'll see certain behaviors, but sometimes it's just bad people. They don't have to have you don't have to have a medical diagnosis to be a bad person. There are actually more, I'm going to go out there and say there are more people who are bad people that don't have a medical diagnosis, a mental health diagnosis, than there are people who have been diagnosed with some type of mental health disorder. Okay, so when we start giving people all these little neat boxes to place themselves in, we actually do ourselves a disservice, because we excuse behavior that should not be excused. Okay, so when people come in and they doing all this love bombing and they ready to move in within a month of knowing you, and they want to move to sex and a serious relationship where you stop seeing other people, and I mean it's just the two of y'all, they start isolating you from your family and friends and all of that. Those are all danger signals. Relationships take time. The majority of relationships take time. Yeah, you hear the stories of, every now and then of people who it was like love at first sight for them and stuff. At least, that's the stories that they give us, and we got to go with that. My thing is usually lust or infatuation at first sight. But there are people, hey, and some of them are still together, So, I mean, there's always an exception, right? Everything ain't nothing new under the sun. How's it go? As above, so below. So we going to just flow with that. So if that's what they say it was, then that's what it was. But in the society in which we live, a lot of times when we meet someone, it's more about our infatuation with them or our lust for them. And I'm not going to use infatuation and lust together, because they can be different things, okay? Lusting after someone is usually you want a carnal knowledge of them. Infatuated doesn't necessarily mean that you're thinking past that person giving you attention, maybe a first kiss, a hug, or something like that, okay? So in my mind, that's how I separate the two of them. And again, you always welcome to disagree, but whatever, it is what it is. But when we meet people, until we've actually had the opportunity to get to know those people, to experience them, to see how they treat other people, and that's important. How do they treat people who serve them? You go sit down at a restaurant, because I know a lot of y'all women like to eat, and y'all don't consider it a date unless y'all go and get some food. But it's not even just how that person, when you go out to eat with them, it's not just relegated to how they treat the staff there. But my grandmother would get deep with some things. She would tell me that you could learn a lot about a person by the way they eat. And there are things that I have noticed about certain people that I've had relationships with. And when I look at how they eat, if they've got a selfish way of eating, if they like put their arms around their plate when they eat, like they're, protecting their food from other people, if they smack their mouth, if they smack when they eat. And I'm talking about Americans, because I've heard somebody say something about Nigerian women have this art form where they smack their food when they eat. And I haven't, if you Nigerian or you come from a Nigerian culture, I wish y'all would let me know whether that's true or not. If you listening to this podcast, y'all let me know whether that's a true statement or not. But I know here in America, when you smack your food, it's annoying. That's what we call it. It ain't no culture to it. It's just goddamn annoying. And it's really annoying when I hear a man doing it. It's anybody. But when men sit at the table, I look at them a certain way when they smack their food throughout an entire meal. But She said you could learn a lot by the way a person eats. And so I've seen some who they don't come up for air, and it's like, where you're in the military, you've been in jail, you did some time, where it's a place where you had to eat fast and move on to the next thing. In the military, they would give us like a certain amount of time in basic training. You only had a few minutes to put down your child. And then you had to move on back to training, so you ate pretty quickly. You didn't have time for a whole lot of rat-a-tat-tat around the table and stuff. It was like eat, get up, get out. Prison, I'm not totally sure that that's the way it goes in prison. So I can't speak to that, but it does kind of make you wonder when you see somebody eating where they just all eat. Like what kind of environment did they come up in? Was it even an environment where food was scarce? That could have been it too. So there's a lot of reasons for it, but that's why it's important to not only just know how they eat, but what things have affected them. Now, you don't need their whole life story, but just certain things that people say, certain ways they act. I remember there was this one guy that anytime I would get a plate of food, he wouldn't ask for, like, can I taste that, on your plate? What does that taste like or whatever? He would just reach on over and take my food. And so one day I damn near stabbed him with the fork. And he's like, well, why would you do some shit like that? And it's like, well, why would you just put your hands in my plate? We walked in here, we ate. I went to the bathroom and I washed my hands and using a napkin to open the door when I came out so that I could sit and eat my food with clean hands. You just came in. You sat at the table. My food is served. Your food is served. And you just reach over into my plate with your dirty hands. And then you have an attitude because I had been, by that time I had been fed up with it because it had been happening so often that this person would just take food off of my plate without asking. And to me, that was like, you've been disrespecting me all this time. So this one time when I'm just basically get your hand out of the way. And I wasn't going to actually stab him with the fork, but I just took my fork and used the tines and just hit the plate with it. Because all the times when I would say things like, oh, so you're not going to just ask before you take my food? It was like disregarding me. Like, shit, I want to taste it. I'm going to taste it. I'm like, yeah, but I mean, you could ask before you taste it. So that time it was like, okay, this is it. This shit is not going to happen anymore. I've been too nice to an idiot. So when he did it that time and his hands were dirty, it was just like, you know what? You done disrespected me too many damn times. So yeah, that time the old me came out. I told y'all I be trying to keep this old me like bottled up because she is fiery and she will act the ass. So I try to keep what I know can be some ass action out of the public eye, but sometimes there are certain people who will bring it out in you. And then later on, they'll accuse you of not being able to have any self-control when it's like, okay, but you took it there and you had been taking it there. And I was just going to let you know that this was it. And you know what though? After I did that, I'm not with that person anymore, but after I did that, I never had problems with that person doing that again. They kind of understood. I don't know whether they thought that I was just crazy or what, but it got my point across. So I don't know. Maybe that's the type of discipline they had in the home growing up. Maybe it wasn't serious until it was serious, like loss of limb or stabbing or something like that, whatever it was. But I just had to let that person know that you're not going to continue to disrespect me like that. So back to even the beginnings of what some people see as a relationship. Yeah, you might fall for somebody. You might be infatuated with them. You might be in lust with them, whatever it is. But if you are looking for a serious relationship down the line, pay attention to the signs. I was reading one snippet on Quora, and I'm not going to stay much longer on here. And the woman was saying that the person that she married was when she got pregnant, she went to him that, he had said he wasn't excited about having children. So, but they did the do, and anybody know that if you're doing the do and ain't nobody using no protection, I mean, we all know as adults what can happen. And so that thing is what happened. She ended up pregnant, and she told him about the pregnancy, and of course he wasn't thrilled about it in the least bit, and he didn't really take part during the pregnancy and appointments and stuff. And I was like, damn, if this ain't mirroring my life. And so the child, I think it was like, is like 2 or 3 years old or something now, and he still hasn't shown any real interest in being a father to his child. And so she was saying she went to some psychic and all this stuff, and the psychic was telling her that she was going to have more children. He went and got a vasectomy because he was making sure that that shit didn't happen again on his side, that he wasn't no more children coming from him. So the psychic told her that she would have more children, and and basically she was going to leave him, and her thing is, the child has found ways to kind of, how children are, they innocent. So she's already started to like become flexible in finding ways to get her father to communicate with her. But he's still not like this loving, doting father or whatever. And my suggestion to the woman was to, I hate to, you never want to tell somebody to break up their home, but their home, what she don't realize, it's already broken. They all living together under the same roof, but they're broken already. And the longer that child stays with somebody like him, she's going to grow up with voids, and she's going to take those voids into adulthood. And the ways that she's going to attempt to get them met, because she's still not going to understand how far these things have followed her, that these are things that she took with her from childhood. So the way that she's going to go about attempting to get these voids filled that she can't really put a name to, those things are going to prove detrimental to her. And not only is she going to suffer, but her mother, who loves her, is going to suffer, because you suffer when your children suffer. When you love your children and you see that your children are suffering, you suffer. Even if you don't tell them that you're suffering. And a lot of times as mamas, we try to put on this strong front and stuff, but it eats us up when our children are being eaten up. And one way to be eaten alive is to come out of a home where you weren't loved in the way you needed to be loved. And that's what that child is experiencing. That child has already started to find ways to please a person who doesn't love her in the way that she needs to be loved. And the longer this woman keeps her there, it don't matter what other children come along and stuff, because the damage is being done now. And that's what people have to realize when it comes to our children. The damage is being done now. This is not damage that's going to occur sometime in the future. It's happening right now. Every moment that we speak becomes history. So every second that child is still in the home with a father who does not love her, who does not want her, she is suffering, and a case is being built for her to have problems as an adult. So that the right time to get out is always yesterday. That's always the right time. But if you missed the yesterday deadline, today is a good day for it. And that's what we have to start thinking of in terms of saving our children. And that was something that arrived even on my doorstep in my mind. The reality of that was something that didn't occur to me until later in life. After I had brought my children through some devastating times in places that I should have taken them out of a long time ago. So don't do what I did. Don't make the mistakes that I did, because then you grow children who, like some of them I'm talking about, who sit there and wait on other people to have enough regard for them, to value them enough to make contact with them. And then when these people further corrode their self-esteem, they wonder, that's when they finally start wondering, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't anybody love me? Why am I always the one that's discarded? But if our children were stronger, they could make better choices. But that strength is something that starts in childhood. Some of us are lucky enough to come into adulthood and realize that what has been done to us. Realize how we have been harmed by our childhood. But there are a lot of people who don't. And those people either turn out to be people who in many ways destroy themselves or seek to destroy others. And even some of them who seek to destroy others end up destroying themselves too, because they end up alone. And that's really, that's all that can be done with some of them at a certain point. They need to be alone until they die. Everybody don't need to die with somebody body. It'd be nice. I mean, if we lived in this utopia, where everybody on your way out here, your family's gathered by your bedside. They all love you. They're going to miss you. They have good memories of you. There are some people, it's just like, die, motherfucker, die. Because they have just killed so many living people. You understand what I'm saying? They haven't taken a gun to you or a knife to you, but they've killed you. Because they killed your self-esteem. They killed your ability to love yourself and to want to see yourself protected and secure. People, the first sign of somebody who actually loves themselves is that person will do whatever they can to protect themselves from other people and other things out there in the environment. These people will not abuse themselves with drugs. They will not abuse themselves with alcohol. When you see people using certain vices and stuff, they have voids. That doesn't make them bad people, though. Now, I'm not saying that, so don't get me wrong. A person who has an addiction, that doesn't make them a bad person. Now, it might make them untrustworthy, especially if it's some type of drug addiction. It can make them untrustworthy, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad people. There are a lot of sober people who are bad. I know people who don't drink not even a smidgen of alcohol that are horrible people. I've lived with a person like that. So let's not get it twisted that all people. That's just like when I hear people saying when they talk about pedophilia, the first thing they do is align it with homosexuality. Everybody. There are heterosexual people who are pedophiles. Matter of fact, every pedophile that I have personally known was heterosexual. So we do even our children a disservice when we tell our children like pedophiles are homo. Because then our children gonna think, well, okay, so my gym teacher who's a man and I'm a girl, if he touched me, he's not a pedophile because he's not a homosexual because he likes people of the opposite sex. So you see how you set your children up when you only half tell them shit? When you don't tell them stuff like a pedophile can be any sexual persuasion, they can be any color, any size, any creed, any of that stuff. That they come in all kinds of shapes and sizes and colors and preferences, but that's the same thing we see when we talk to our daughters and stuff, when we tell them about people who might hurt them and stuff. So we don't never want to give the illusion that only people addicted to something hurt other people. The same as I don't want my children to walk around thinking that the only person that could be a pedophile is somebody who's homosexual, who lesbian, gay, or something like that. Because I'm doing my children a disservice to tell them something like that, because that is not 100% true. Any gender, any sexual preference can be a pedophile. Okay, plain and simple. So the same when it comes to people who will destroy your life. They can be people that have no obvious vices, like they heavy chain smokers, they smoke a lot of dope, they smoke crack, they drink alcohol. They could be somebody who don't touch any of that stuff. They cold turkey on everything. They've never touched that kind of stuff. And like I said, and they can still be detrimental to you. So when people are not giving you the attention that you feel like you need from them, because first of all, it's not, when you're an adult, you should want certain people around more than you need them. Need speaks to clinginess. And so then you have to look at, do I have some type of codependency? Because that can suffocate a person and make a person not want to contact you. Because it's like, damn, man, every time I turn around, motherfucker, you're sending me a text message, or calling me, that don't want to get off the phone, want to talk all day. I got stuff that I need to do. I can't get things done. I'm starting to look bad on my job. People starting to complain because my phone always ring. I'm always on the phone with them. So we have to look at that this works both ways. That not only can we sometimes, people can have disregard for us. Sometimes we force them to do that because they recognize that we need too much. That there's some self-healing and stuff that we need to go do, that we don't need to be involved with nobody. So that works both ways. So you got to look at when a person doesn't contact you, how often are you contacting them? Are you contacting them all the time? Are you sending like one text message after another? Are you calling them every single morning, lunchtime, every single night before you go to bed. Maybe that's too much for that person. Maybe that's a person that don't need to talk to somebody morning, noon, and night. I know I'm one of those type of people. I don't need you to call me morning, noon, and night. Matter of fact, I need that so little that if you do that, not only am I not going to take most of those calls, but I'm going to slack off on calling you because it's too much for me. Now, if I'm going through something, yeah, there might be occasions where we might talk for, for some length of time, or if you going through something, because I'm not selfish like that. I'm not going to shut you down when you need to talk. But if it's just everyday banter back and forth and stuff like that, I do have other shit that I could be doing. And the older I get, I got other shit I can be doing because I'm going to do shit till I can't do no more shit. You know what I mean? When you're on the other side of the fence, you got to start prioritizing how much time you spend doing certain things. Because for one, you also need your downtime. Now I understand why my grandmother used to sit in her recliner and take a nap on you. You could be talking and she going to fall asleep on you. She didn't give no fucks about what you were saying at the time. And every day, like clockwork, she got that nap in. And then when she got up, then she was ready to handle the rest of her evening until she sat there again and watched Benson at night. Some of y'all old heads probably remember the show Benson. After Benson, she would go to bed. She'll watch the news, she'll watch Benson, and then she'd go to bed. But when you get older, you be needing your restful periods. Relaxation become a very important thing. So you don't always have time to be on no phone all day. We adults, damn it. We ain't no little children. We ain't got time for all that gossiping. People who got time for a lot of gossiping are really not doing anything. And by a certain age, you should have something going on. I'm not saying you got to be busy all the time or running and racing and working for other people and all that stuff like that. But you should have something. I don't care if you just at a certain time every day you sit down and read a book. You should have something going on that's relaxing to you or that grows you or both. But it shouldn't be sitting there still talking about shit y'all talked about when y'all were in high school and stuff. I mean, come on. At what point do you grow? But again, like I said, when it comes to that, I'm fixing to get off of here. I just wanted to touch on that whole text message, that whole communication thing, And like I said, in the end, communication is an important aspect of any relationship. So if you are not getting the communication early on in the relationship, it's almost a guarantee it's not going to happen later. What you see up front, what you get up front, outside of people coming with their mirages and stuff, that's usually what the relationship is going to entail for you all the way through. Okay? So all these expectations, this whole idea of fixing people in the relationship, like I've said before, the place to fix yourself is before you enter a relationship. It's not fair to the other person to bring your broken ass into a relationship. So do all your fixing before you step in there. So again, communication. If your communications are not on point, if you two are not jiving when it comes to communication, have an honest discussion about it. If it still doesn't change, or that person tells you right up front, that's not my communication style, you can either decide right then and there before you get too emotionally invested that, hey, maybe we should just be friends. Friendship ain't a bad thing. I don't know why in America people think that everything got to lead to sex, that every relationship they have with somebody has to be sexual in nature. Why is this? What is it about that? But let me enlighten you. Every relationship you have with someone of the opposite sex does not have to lead to sex. Y'all understand that? And sometimes these ideas that you have of what another person should be to you are off. And what could have been a decent friendship is destroyed because you wanted more than that person was willing to give. Okay? So you don't have to screw every man who you become friends with. I don't care if y'all holler at each other in Messenger, on Facebook, on your phone and stuff every damn day. That don't mean that y'all supposed to have a relationship. Set boundaries, ladies. Have boundaries. Have some pride about y'all self, okay? Some self-respect. Set the pace of your relationship. Yes, men are known to pursue, but you set the pace for that, okay? Let them pursue. You set your pace. So if they not calling you back, they not texting you back, then Go find you something else to do so that you can get your hands off that goddamn phone and stop calling and texting them. And then if they start to miss you for real, they'll reach out to you. Because they be like, okay, well, I thought she was going to be one of them, man, all up under you all the time and shit. So I was ignoring her. But, I think I might be kind of missing her right now. And when they call you, then you let that be what it is. And then the next time you let them initiate it again. It's okay for the person pursuing you to initiate the conversations, the communications, okay? That is absolutely okay. So if he don't communicate with you for 6 more months, guess what? You haven't wasted 6 months of your life waiting on him. You've been busy. And you need to be busy when he contact you 6 months from now. You need to be so busy that you don't even reply right away, if you reply at all. Let that be completely up to you. Because again, they might pursue, but you set the pace. Okay, so you just keep that in mind, and that's how you deal with all your relationships when it comes to the opposite sex. When it comes to this stuff, they might pursue, you set the pace. All right, that's it. That's what I got for y'all. Thank y'all for being here with me. This is Nandi. You've just listened to the Codename Sister podcast with Nandi.